One thing I want to drive home is many a times when we are trying to teach our children about the difference between bad and good, and we want to think bad mouth bad to the extent that the person we're teaching becomes averse to it. What we don't want to do in that teaching is become unrealistic. Okay, don't become unrealistic. Acknowledge that it does have this tendency, it does have these qualities, but it does come with a price. And that price, it's not a very positive one. It's harmful, and its harms outweigh the benefits. The one thing I want to draw our attention to is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah, He brings the first set of verses to avert people or to discourage people from consuming alcohol. What does Allah do? He doesn't badmouth alcohol. What He does when it comes to khamr, He's telling you its true nature. And the same thing with gambling. With gambling, He tells us the true nature of them. Okay, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. Okay, when it comes to the people, they are asking you about khamr, which is wine, and they're asking you about maisir, which is gambling. They're asking these two things to you. Like, what is the ruling? What is basically your viewpoint on it? Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُل, you say to them, فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. That within these two things there is great sin. And here sin is not going to be interpreted as an offense to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because at the moment of this revelation, it wasn't a sin. Okay, it's actually going to be translated as a disadvantage. Okay, the prohibition, I'll take the question after inshallah. The prohibition is going to come years after this. Okay, the categorical prohibition of khamr is going to come 16 years after the Prophet ﷺ gets the first revelation. But prior to that, you're going to have these stages where the Muslims are being somewhat discouraged. Then there's going to be a minor prohibition. Like I won't say an all-out, a categorical prohibition, but there's going to be a minor prohibition. And then will come the categorical prohibition. So the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing is discouraging. So He's saying, قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ. So there are great disadvantages in it. But look what Allah does at the same time. He also declares, وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. There are benefits for it in people. So interesting the way He says this. He doesn't say manfa'a, He says manafi'. Manafi' is a plural of manfa'a. He's not saying there's just only one benefit, there's many benefits. So there are advantages, right, to khamr. There are advantages to gambling. Allah is acknowledging reality. Okay, so some of the benefits that people may extract from drinking is that it makes us get away from reality. It basically it soothes us, it comforts us from all the miseries of the world. It's also something that gives us enjoyment. Okay, there could be a whole bunch of things. Now, for the record, I've never drunk, so I'm just saying hypothetically. Okay, so don't think that I've ever visited a pub or a bar. Same thing when it comes to gambling. When it comes to gambling, yes, there are advantages. You win some, you lose some. Sometimes you make big money, sometimes you lose some big money. But look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the end of that. وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِن نَفْعِهِمَا. Its disadvantages are far greater than its advantages. My focus here is how Allah is being real with His creation. He's telling us that these are the realities. Yes, there are things that you may avail from when it comes to these entities, but at the same time, there are other things that are going to harm you. And the harms outweigh the good. So here is a point for us that when it comes to teaching our children, the one thing is that if we are always going to talk about the bad of a particular thing and we over-exaggerate it, remember, in this liberal society, people are going to see the other side for what it is. And then they're going to lose confidence in the teachings of the parents. That these guys, all they're doing is they're teaching me something that's extreme, something that's unacceptable. I don't need to consult with them. All they're doing really is barring me from having a good time. Okay, they just don't want me to have fun. Okay, and that is a reality here. So remember, understand that when it comes to this country, when it comes to this society, we have to be very realistic. Okay, we can't say nahi gandagi hai. Okay, like in our native lands, you go to some places, and just to say the word pig is deemed sinful in that society. Just to say the word pig. I mean, that in itself it blew my mind when I first was exposed to this. I go, well, so is Allah sinning when He says the word khinzir? Okay, in the Quran, because khinzir means pig. Okay, so what happens, this is an over-exaggeration of our teachings of the deen. No, the deen is very pragmatic. The deen is very realistic. Okay, so what we're trying to do when we're going back to this is that when we want to deter people from a particular activity, acknowledge that activity for what it is. Yes, it may give this person this type of advantage or that type of advantage, but also know the other side. The other side is it's got all of these disadvantages. And these disadvantages, they're going to outdo the temporary advantages that you're going to experience. And really, if you want to be a wise person, you need to think long term, not short term.